Welcome to episode 124 of the Sports Geek podcast. On this week's episode, I chat with Greg Mize from the Atlanta Braves on hackathons, innovations, and digital content.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host whose professional sports career was tragically cut short at age 17 due to a lack of ability, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Even though I wrote that intro, it still hurts me. It hurts me so much that you said it out loud. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. You can find me on most platforms as Sean Callanan. That's SeanCallanan. Don't make me sing the song. And for those of you who have been to a Callanan family function or maybe saw the Snapchat story with my Auntie Kath, who recently turned 100, you would know what I'm talking about the Callanan song. If you get me drunk enough, I might sing it, but it really only gets sung at Callanan family events. And you're listening to the Sports Geek podcast. I'm doing my best to change up the intro. I've been given some feedback that I constantly say the same thing at the top of every show. So I'm trying to change it up for you, Daniel, and I know you're listening, so thank you very much. So you are listening to the Sports Geek podcast, and I hope you're doing it on my favourite podcasting app, Pocket Casts. I don't know what it is now. It might be $2, $3, maybe $4 in the both the iTunes Apple Store and also the Google Play Store. Take it as a personal recommendation. If you buy it and you don't like it, send me a tweet and I'll pay you back. But it is also available in iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud and any other podcasting app. If it's not available on an app that you're looking for, please contact me. As I said before, you can tweet me or you can use that old-fashioned form of communication. No, not fax. I do not accept any faxes. Email sean@sportsgeekhq.com will find me. And if it's that, asking for a podcasting suggestion, asking for just a question about the podcast, I'm happy to take on any emails from people who listen to the podcast. Lucky enough this week to chat with Greg Mize. We actually chatted during an Atlanta Braves game. I was lucky enough to host a roundtable session at Seat in Las Vegas with Greg. He is the Director of Digital Marketing at the Braves, and it was great to have a chat with him. And here is my chat with Greg Mize from the Atlanta Braves. Very happy to welcome Greg Mize, the Director of Digital Marketing from the Atlanta Braves, to the Sports Geek podcast. Welcome, Greg.
Sean, good to be here. Thank you.
Now, you're a long-time Atlanta native. Before your time at the Braves started, you spent a lot of time at Turner in multiple roles. Do you want to give us a little bit of background of your sports business background story?
Sure. I guess working backwards, spent, I think, around 6 years at Turner Sports in their marketing group, touching pretty much every property that they had there, from NCAA March Madness Live, NASCAR, and most recently before coming to the Braves, their NBA digital properties. Before that, I was actually born and raised up in Boston, so my first couple of jobs were up there. Before coming down to Turner, I worked at Boston.com, which at the time was the website of the Boston Globe, and a lot of news, sports, as it relates to kind of all things in and around Boston. Before that, I was at NESN, New England Sports Network, which is the cable home and the rights holder for the Boston Bruins and Boston Red Sox. And that was preceded by my first gig out of school, which was an internship in the Boston College athletic department in their media relations office. So really, some continuing threads through all those roles, definitely media focused, obviously a sports focus, and digital focus as well. And it's been quite astounding just to see the evolution of digital from my first gig coming out of college to where we are today.
Yeah, I know the guys at NESN. I did a panel with Mike Hall at Seat when it was in Boston in 2012. So you've sort of been in that digital space and had a really good breadth from a Turner point of view, working at NASCAR and MLB and in the NBA. You're now at the Atlanta Braves. I went and looked at your LinkedIn profile to get a bit of background, and all your description says is all things digital at the Atlanta Braves. And there you go. I'm stumbling over my words, but I will get it right. Do you want to expand on your role at the Braves?
Yeah, so when I describe it, probably the simplest way I can encapsulate it is, if it's official Braves content, if it's hitting your phone, your computer, your tablet, it's either starting with our team or coming through our team at one point or another. Obviously working very closely with Major League Baseball advanced media, it's really I think when you break down some of the platforms. Everything from social, apps, web, email. So it's definitely a full spectrum of all things digital, and definitely within the last year or so, really have a renewed focus on the concept of digital innovation, and really how we can be not just in the moment, but also anticipating and thinking ahead, and working with what's coming down the road.
So it's very people in your role, in that role of digital and whether it's marketing or content, how much is your role on the content side, helping produce innovative content for the Braves on all the channels, and then how much is it in the marketing, getting results both from a ticketing point of view or with your sponsor and your partnership activations? How is your role split up in that space?
Yeah, it's interesting, when you really hit the sweet spot, when all of that kind of comes together, and when you're producing content that is really resonating with fans, and engaging to the point that it's almost enticing them to want to come to the game and to want to have a closer association with the team. So tactically, it's honestly really hard to put a split on that. But I think definitely what we aim for is when the content can resonate enough, and we're really hitting a chord with our fans and bringing them closer to the team. It's just fascinating how the emergence of social and digital in general, but the capability that it has to whether it's build fandom or cultivate fandom, and so really that's what we aim to do is having content that is relevant, that is personalized, and that truly is something that wants. Or makes the fan want to have a closer association with the team. And, a lot of the KPIs that are measuring that are obvious, ticket sales and merchandise and enhanced consumption when they're here at the ballpark.
So what does your team in Atlanta look like? Because you've got the shared resources and the production that happens out of BAM. What does the team in Atlanta, from a content producer and marketing executives, what does your team look like as far as how many bodies and what type of roles they're doing?
Sure. So the digital team reports up to a VP of marketing, Adam Zimmerman, who is over all facets of marketing here. So that's consumer marketing, digital, game entertainment, community affairs. And the digital team specifically, I have a full-time coordinator, and then we have 2 trainees, and that's the Braves specific team. But then through the resources of BAM, we have a social in-game producer. So that's predominantly in-game Twitter. And then we also have resources for a program. It's called the RTC program. It's a designated BAM employee at each MLB ballpark that is helping gather content during the games for the home team, for the league, but also for the visiting team as well. So it's actually a very beneficial service, especially when we're on the road and we don't have digital resources that are traveling with the team. So it's a great way for us to get content when the Braves are on the road from the opposing team's RTC as well.
So that content producer that is in that shared role, which is because it is always the tough thing of do you send someone out on the road, and that's where the BAM shared model really works well. What do you have to brief them specifically to say, these are the things that we want, or this is what our fans want, and this is the point of view, whether it be a style of picture or the way that they tweet or post? Do you have to brief them out to say, this is the Braves way, so it doesn't jar from game to game? Because you would have different producers running all of these different games from a road point of view.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the actual in-game producer who is publishing the content is the same person for all 162 games. Okay. And we actually had known of this person beforehand, and so in addition to having familiarity with the Braves overall. Definitely a familiarity with how we wanted to do things, what we wanted our voice to be. And so that was a seamless onboard. And we definitely do provide direction to the visiting teams, or I'm sorry, when we're on the road to the home team, in terms of, if there's certain things that we're looking for from, because they're pretty much just sending us photos and videos. So, we need to focus on these players, or, let's say it's a major league debut for someone, please capture photos of them warming up in the bullpen before they come on the field. So they're definitely very receptive to taking direction to what type of content we're looking for on any given night.
Yeah, so they're really just sourcing all the content that you need, and then your in-game producer is framing the game on all the different channels in the manner that they can best do that for what you want to do for your brand and what your fans are expecting.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the challenges, as more and more platforms, become prominent, is it's taking now multiple people to publish on multiple platforms. Because of the uniqueness of the way these platforms capture content. So obviously Snapchat is its own beast. So we have a dedicated person for that. But Periscope and Facebook Live have been fantastic evolutions, and we've been really excited by what that's able to deliver our fans. The challenge with them is, if you're using a phone to Facebook Live or to Periscope, there's not other content you're able to get with that phone. Back in the days where it was, pretty much Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, you could, bang out a couple of different photos and even videos, and then figure out which content made sense for the right platform. But you can capture all that from one person on one phone. Even with Instagram stories now, that's another evolution, because it's a whole other look and feel than Instagram. So it's definitely making sure you've got the right people, and people who are knowledgeable of the platforms themselves, but I think even more specifically of our fans as they relate to those platforms, and making sure we have the right voice, we have the right cadence, and that can definitely be challenging, but it's also extremely rewarding.
And that's the challenges with those apps that are especially very geo-local focus, like Snapchat and to a lesser extent Insta Stories. They have to be taken there. There's not that, send us the photo and then we'll put some graphics on it and we can put it up on Facebook or Facebook Live. So, as much as it's great to have those extra producers, they really need 3 cameras, 6 arms to be able to service all of the partners. So I think that's probably something that's going to develop potentially to make that a little bit easier. But yeah, when it comes to live, you do need someone holding that phone at the other end. Leads me into the conversation. You guys and Major League Baseball teams overall. Facebook did a deal with Major League Baseball for more teams to be doing more Facebook Live. What type of content have you seen has worked well? What's the content that your fans are really receptive to? How have you played out that as a content strategy piece within a platform like Facebook?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we're looking to do with Facebook Live is give access. So for obviously we have over 2 million, likes on Facebook, and obvious, not all of them are here for a given night. So, especially when the team is home, obviously a very simple execution is batting practice, but fans love that access, and even for fans that are at the game, it's rare that you're actually able to get on the field and get next to the cage during BP. But then everything, from, finding ways to interact with the players. This week is our first year of an initiative called Braves Community Heroes Week, where each day we were honoring a specific hero within the community, someone who goes above and beyond and really has made an impact in and around Braves country. And so there's been fantastic player support that, are going to these events and surprising these individuals. And, so that's been, extremely popular in terms of, giving fans kind of a look at the players not on the field and not in uniform. I think the biggest advantage that gives is it humanizes them. It takes them from this epic superstar to just a regular person who's, saying thanks to someone who does something really good. We've done everything from, we've got Chase Darno, a utility infielder. He is in a band, believe it or not, and can very frequently be seen before batting practice, just whether it's in the press cafeteria or somewhere in the service level with his guitar, singing to some of the workers here. But he did a post-game show after one of our games a couple weeks ago, so that was a good Facebook Live execution. I think probably one of the most memorable ones that we've done is earlier in July. We were honored and privileged to take part in the Fort Bragg game against the Marlins, and there was some fantastic content that we got there to really, show fans, what was happening both earlier in the day when the team was touring the post, and then before the game, we actually recruited some active paratroopers with the 82nd Airborne to take over our Facebook and actually all of our social platforms. And the soldier that took over Facebook Live, he does a lot of work for the broadcasting group at Fort Bragg. So, it had like this guided, host who was taking fans and giving them a tour of the whole ballpark. So that's the one that definitely sticks out. Obviously, it was rare because it was a once-in-a-lifetime event, but I definitely think the success that we're seeing is because we're able to really give access and show fans what's going on.
And it is, for mine at the moment with Facebook Live, is trying to figure out, because it's going counter to every other piece of content that's going out there. Everything is meant to be short and snackable and disposable. And Facebook Live and the live platforms is all about length, and you can do longer form stuff. So you can have someone walk you through, or you can do a 30 to 40 minute post game show type of thing. So it's a bit of a mix of, can we capture a great speech or a press conference or batting practice and having people tune in, but then also if there's this piece of content that you can produce that is longer form that your fans want to deep dive into, and obviously they can watch it after and not catch it live, but I think that's the place where I think teams are starting to find their sweet spot on, this is going to be a great piece of content for 2 or 3 minutes, we're going to capture that in a live format, or things like a post-game show. I'm really interested. Facebook is launching a two-person Facebook Live where you can have 1 or 2 people, and again, most of your live is probably in home game type things, but you'll be able to, hopefully in the next month or two, to be able to interview the winning pitcher with your studio talent on Facebook Live at the end of a game, and so it really opens up some of the things that you'll be able to do. Yeah,
and definitely, I think that's. If I had to guess, that's probably part of their push for more longer form content to maybe start getting their users more familiar with that as they push towards maybe more produced content. Simple graphics packages and maybe something that traditionally you would have seen on television, but now kind of bringing that into Facebook. I think NBA TV was probably one of the earlier examples of someone who really maximized Facebook Live when they live streamed Steph Curry warming up for a game where he was coming off injury, wasn't sure if he was going to play. So, made the decision I'm going to warm up and see how it goes. So, NBA TV just, flipped their studio coverage and in essence streamed it on Facebook Live. And obviously it was very high demand because of just the subject matter. But I think that's definitely an evolution. And I think where it's going and conversations we're having is, okay, it's great from the phone and it provides access and what fans are looking for. But what else can we do, especially knowing that we have this built-in audience, this captivated audience. So, really the potentials are quite honestly boundless in terms of where you can take this platform.
Yeah, and that's where I do think that rather than the Q&A post-game show, which is great access, I think we're not far away from that being a studio type show with multi-camera setup, and it will look like what you see on TV. So I think that's probably it's a natural progression for that, and the fact that Facebook is effectively pulling back the velvet rope of EdgeRank to push through live videos. It's something that if you're not doing it now, you really want to take advantage of it because the fans are sort of clamoring over it.
No doubt. Yep, exactly.
Speaking of innovation, just recently you guys had a hackathon in a partnership with the Atlanta Tech Village. Do you want to take us through, I guess, some of the reasons behind that and how it went? Yeah.
So, really the thought behind it is, quite honestly, we only know what we know, right? We know baseball, and what's interesting is we're approaching a really exciting time in our franchise's history, where next year we'll move into a new ballpark, state-of-the-art facility, the first baseball-specific facility actually ever here in Atlanta. So definitely for the baseball purists, it will be a fantastic experience, but in addition, it's part of a 90-acre footprint where we'll have mixed use from restaurants to bars, shops, residences, office building, a hotel. And what's really exciting about all this is our partnership with Comcast and the terabit pipe that they're bringing in there to just have the Wi-Fi capabilities in this place far and away, supreme to what you see, obviously here today. And from what we're told, the fastest internet, the fastest Wi-Fi connection in North American sports. So something that we are extremely excited about. But with that, we're having to look at our business a little bit differently, and going from being relevant 81 days out of the year when you're trying to attract fans to your ballpark for a game, to now, looking to get people, whether it's coming early to the game, staying late, coming when the team's on the road, coming during the off season. So, obviously we're going to be opening up who we're talking to, and with this foundation of this connectivity we're going to be getting from Comcast, really is pushing us to align ourselves with some really smart people to help us, program this experience. So, the rise of the Atlanta tech scene and the Atlanta startup scene has been fantastic, and something that has really grown exponentially over the last 5 years, and something that we quite honestly want to be a part of, and we want to support and we want to help. And you look at everyone always looks to Silicon Valley and the innovation that happens there, and in Austin and in New York, and we want Atlanta to be one of those places that's on the top of people's mind when they think of digital innovation and startups and just a really blossoming tech scene. So, with all those things said, the Atlanta Tech Village is one of many entrepreneurial shops here in Atlanta, and we reached out to them. We've done a couple events with them in the past, and going into the season, we said let's put together this formal partnership, which will spur multiple different events. And really, the first major event that came out of this was the hackathon that we did last weekend. So it was interesting. We went into it having no idea what we were going to get. And I think one of the challenging things in preparing for it is, when we were briefing all the participants on the first night, we didn't want to give too much direction because we really didn't want to limit the types of ideas that we got. And so it was definitely a balance of, we want to kind of paint the picture in terms of what we're looking for, but the reason we're here is to think outside of baseball and to see if there's any innovation happening that people are involved in that they can actually bring and help us as we program our app, but also just the whole fan experience element, especially as it relates to digital for 2017 and beyond.
Yeah, because you're really building out an entertainment precinct. It's not just a stadium. Because
exactly, yep.
And so you're effectively getting into new areas for the Braves in placemaking and experiential stuff where it's you're trying to make up that whole village. You've got 90 acres of people to entertain. So the hackathon was all about finding innovative solutions to help create a sporting experience in the Southeast. That was the tagline. Yep. For the people who are listeners are going, what the hell is that hackathon? Take us through it. Take us through it. I've seen a few. They're happening all around the world now. It pretty much is you give the brief of, hey, build us something cool, everybody, on Friday, and they've got till, was it Sunday night, to actually present a minimal viable product? Is that pretty much how the weekend went?
Yeah. So we kicked it off, I think probably around 7 or 8 o'clock on Friday night, and submissions were due 3 o'clock on Sunday. So we had just over 40 individuals who were there, and honestly, I think the most fascinating thing to me was, you had people who were coming as already formed teams, whether they are already a current business. But they already went into it knowing what each person's role is, what their specialty is. But then you had a lot of people that came as just individuals, and they came as themselves. And it was truly fascinating to see after we kind of laid everything out on Friday night, these pockets of people starting to develop, and they were congregating around shared ideas. They were congregating around what their specialties were. So you had people who were saying, "No, I'm a developer. I'm a creative. I'm a strategist," and to see all these people come together and form a team on the spot. And then to have, less than 48 hours to put something together was, honestly, I think spoke to the spirit of really why, we wanted to do this. And we really, we actually invited our whole front office out to the presentations. We had, a bunch of people there, and really this innovative and entrepreneurial spirit wore off on our employees, which was really fascinating. I think one of the byproducts of why we think this was a successful event.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Tim Bull, who he found his co-founder of a startup at a hackathon, and I think 3 years later they were acquired. Now he's working out of San Francisco. So it's a real, like, it is really the true entrepreneurial startup scene all meshed together. You can form some really good partnerships. It is the whole thrive under pressure, because there's a lot of work, not much sleep, a lot of Red Bull and pizza in the mix. But I do think
beer.
Some beer.
There was some beer too.
Well, it's all about whatever greases the wheels.
Get those creative juices flowing.
But I think the piece that you said at the end there, where more of the Braves executives are there, and that starts rubbing off. So even if we had our CEO as one of the judges, and we had many other people from the front office who were there just listening to it. It was really fascinating. And that's the thing, if you're having a brainstorming session on marketing campaigns or, stadium entertainment, all that kind of stuff, sometimes it's a good idea to bring someone else from the mix and just see if you can get those ideas flying around. And that's pretty much what happens at a hackathon, and people come away and go, here's our idea. and you don't know where that might go. So, from the, do you want to tell us a little bit about the team that won? So
it's interesting. The winning team came into it as a team, as a company with a product called Mixel, and the runner-up team was the opposite. They were a team that was formed on the fly. And I mean, talking to some of the people beforehand, one of the women from that group, she had started off doing marketing in tech and got out of it a little bit and wanted to get back into it, and saw that they were having this hackathon and decided to come and be a part of it. The coder on that team is in high school, so it was fascinating. So Mixel was the winning team. It's high level what their concept was. It was this idea of leveraging social to entice and reward discovery of our new ballpark and mixed-use development, and additionally tied into social as a way to kind of surface, your friends or other connections that may be, that may be there at the game. The second group, which again was the one that was formed on the fly, without going into too many details, they really had this amazing concept that this idea of helping plan your trip to a ball game, and doing so in a way that was kind of set to some of your personal preferences in the ways that you may want to consume a live sporting event. It was extremely, fascinating that they were able to put that together in, like I said, less than 48 hours.
Well, that's true. Again, like you said, you see the innovation that's coming out of San Francisco, but more and more teams. I've spoken to Jack Elkins down at Orlando doing stuff in the startup space at the Magic, and you've got what the Dodgers are doing with their accelerator. It's something that I think more and more sports teams will dip their toe in, just for the added benefit of just getting the training to their employees and that buzz of, hey, we can make these kind of products ourselves, or take on that entrepreneurial spirit. But I think some really good ideas are going to come out of these kind of sessions.
Oh yeah, it's only going to push us to be better, and that goes for everyone. It's it's a very exciting time, and it kind of just speaks to this convergence of sports and technology. And it's extremely exciting to be a part of it.
One other thing, to move away from the hackathon, but in the innovation space, I want to talk about Brave's monthly pass which is pretty unique, being effectively a subscription service, but in a ticketing space. We're all very familiar with the subscription service with MLB at Bat and League Pass and those kind of things in a digital sense. But you've rolled out this monthly pass subscription, this membership for that fans can buy and do it monthly. Do you want to explain both how it works and then also how it's been received in the market and who it's exactly for?
Yeah, sure. So it was created out of the genesis of every sports team, every brand, every whatever is trying to tap into a younger consumer.
The ever elusive millennials, Greg.
The ever elusive millennial. Exactly.
We're all chasing them. They should just be like Pokemon, and we can chase them down and know where they are. I'm sure there would be marketers all around the world running around looking for them.
It's interesting. I really don't like saying the word millennial a lot, only because from one end of the spectrum of the other, they're really very different consumers. They're in different stages of their life. You have some in the lower, the younger end, single, just in the workforce. And then you go to the other side of the spectrum, and you've got young families, and so it's interesting how it's this one sort of large definition for a very diverse subset. But regardless, I think a lot of the things that we do see with this group is how they consume. You look at the idea of the shared economy where they don't have a gym membership, they have a class pass. They're not obviously, they're clearly not buying CDs anymore. But even so, I mean, they're not even buying songs on iTunes, where they're gravitating to Spotify and Apple Music. It's Netflix. That's how they get their video content, as opposed to, buying a Blu-ray. And so this is familiar to them. So we see that too in this idea of access versus ownership as it relates to attending a sporting event. So, the idea of ownership where, this is my seat. For 81 games, this is where I'm sitting. And that still holds true, and that will honestly never go away. But I think we're also starting to see this idea of access permeate the marketplace, where it's less about this is my seat where I'm sitting for these 9 innings. It's more about I just want to get in the ballpark, and I don't need a seat. And if I have one, maybe I'll sit in there for a little bit. But I want to roam around and go to the chop house and meet up with a couple of friends, and then head over to this section and meet up with another group of friends who's standing in this GA section.
Especially as you're developing, the new ballpark, and it has all these different entertainment zones. You're right that there will be fans that just never sit in their seat.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot more common space in SunTrust Park, because of this trend that we're seeing. And I say we're seeing, but everyone is seeing it. The Rockies and the Indians, have done renovations where they've taken out seats and put in more communal spaces. I mean, Daytona International Speedway just did a massive undertaking, and even years before that, they took out their backstretch grandstands and put in more of a communal space. So it's something that's happening across the board, and really what Monthly Pass is, it's addressing those two things, the idea of the shared economy, the idea of access. We are extremely lucky to work with Experience, who is actually based here in Atlanta. We've been working for them for the last couple of years. We started working with them on in-seat upgrades, in-app upgrades during the game. We then started working with them on a loyalty program for our season ticket holders, and now we work with them on these digital only plans. And they are extremely tuned into the space and fantastic partners. And so it's been really successful, because I think what we see is people will purchase for one price access to every home game that month. And it's like any subscription service, you have the reoccurring renewals that happen from one month to the next. And it's interesting that June was our first month we rolled it out. We had people who reached out to us and said, "Hey, I want to cancel for July because I'm going to be out of town a lot, but I would love to come back in August." So you had people who were in essence pausing their subscriptions. And it's really been a huge learning for us, because we've done Monthly Pass, we've done what this year we had spring, fall, and summer passes, where we combined 2 months at a time and give access to all of those games. We did multiple pass programs last year, and really. What we're trying to do, in addition to meeting these consumers where they are, is we're also trying to learn, because we're going from a situation where we're going from about 50,000 seats here at Turner Field to 41,000 at SunTrust Park. And we still want to do these things, because it still holds true that there is a market for this. But all the data that we're learning in terms of usage rates, in terms of who is actually purchasing this, will help us be smart, especially as it comes to inventory management for next year. So in addition to helping our fans, and encourage them to come to games, we're also getting some really good learnings that we'll be able to apply next year.
Yeah, I really like the idea, and it does fit into that's all the feeds that they have. They do have Netflix, and they do have all of the Spotify. So it makes sense to them, rather than the commitment of I've got 80 odd games to be able to turn up, and the fact that it's all mobile driven, which is the device that they want to transact on.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where they are. That's how they're transacting. That's how they're consuming. That's how they're interacting and engaging. So let's focus on that device as much as we can.
Well, thank you very much for the interview. I'm going to finish with the Fast Five finish, the questions. What was the first sports event you ever attended?
The year escapes me, and I vaguely remember it, but it was a Boston Bruins New York Islanders game at the old Boston Garden.
Oh, that would have been memorable.
I think it's probably a good thing I didn't remember it, because I probably would have learned a few choice words at a young age.
But the old Garden was a special place. I've only been to the TD Garden. I wasn't lucky enough to go to the old Garden. So
that place was amazing. Obviously at the time, when new stadiums started, new arenas started coming around. You always kind of look for, the new shiny toy. But looking back, that when that place got loud, it was intense.
And your favorite food at a sports event?
Can I take the easy route and just say a hot dog?
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah, and there's some amazing options we have here. H&F Burger, steak sandwiches from Kevin Rathbun. But I'm going to keep it old school and just go with the hot dog.
And what's the first app that you open in the morning?
Twitter, or actually my calendar. Just to refresh myself on the upcoming day. So it's either that or Twitter.
And if you have a recommendation for the podcast listeners on someone that they should follow or read or keep tabs on, who would you say helps you keep up to date with what you're trying to do with your role?
Without a doubt, Sport Techie. Some amazingly bright people there. From their site, but obviously their Twitter feed really keeps me up to speed as to what's happening, who's doing what. But far and away the Sport Techie guys, they do some amazing stuff.
Oh, Taylor, I was speaking to Taylor last night, who runs Sport Techie, so he'll be very pleased to hear that.
I had the chance to meet him finally at SEAT. So, they're doing some great things.
And if you had to pick a social media platform as your MVP, what platform would it be? And this can be either personally, or it could be as from a team point of view. It is dealer's choice on this question.
Wow.
But I've only got one MVP.
All right, I can only choose one, because I was gonna try to give the political.
We're not doing co-MVPs here, Greg. Sorry.
Quad MVPs. I'd probably go with Twitter, and the reason for that is it's obviously a great blend of entertainment engagement, but it also it keeps me up to date. Everything from sports news. I would say Twitter, but that is of no disrespect to Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, and Instagram's fascinating, especially with stories now, because it's a whole other dimension. It's fascinating, and so I'm sure my answer will change next year once the next one comes along.
That's right. I'm going to add a sixth one here. So with Insta Stories, which is still relatively new, and it's effectively Facebook's Snapchat killer, if you will. What's your take on it early on Insta stories, because there is, from a team point of view, it sort of starts doing a bit of duplication. It's like, we're going to put out a post. Oh, we've got to do it on Insta and Snapchat.
Right, exactly.
So I mean, Insta has the audience already, and it's a really good place to go and do that. And there's a whole bunch of people on Insta that don't know Snapchat, but then you've got the Snapchat people super angry, like they've stolen it. Where do you think? Because effectively now Instagram is two apps in the one app. It's the Insta stories and the pictures, and trying to find that balance of which audience you're serving. How are you seeing it early on?
Yeah, I mean, the parallels to Snapchat, just more from a look and feel standpoint. I mean, obviously, it's really doesn't have any similarities to traditional Instagram. But I think they obviously saw something. They got the audience, and as Snapchat continues to grow, obviously you have a massive audience there as well. So it's probably an opportunity to see if they can get some of those Snapchat users over. But I would say it is of striking similarities to Snapchat.
But the thing is, from a sports marketer and someone running team accounts point of view, it's sort of like you can't discount it because you don't know where it's going to go. Like Facebook's always been innovative in trying to change its products to see where the market's going, but they've also shut them down. Like, they've had Slingshot, which was their first Snapchat sort of trial. They've had things like Poke that is no longer around. But if you don't participate in it and then it goes off, you're sort of a laggard in the space. So it's a bit of a tough one to say how deeply are we going to go in on this new platform.
Exactly. Definitely, it's similar to what was it, 2 years ago or so. When you had Periscope and Meerkat, kind of coming out. Meerkat, was with Facebook, Periscope with Twitter, and so I mean, I think there's a lot of duplication, between a lot of these platforms. And that's where I think, Snapchat's been so successful in that it really wasn't like what you were used to on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. And I think that's why it's been so wildly successful. But you're right. I mean, from their perspective, they've got to continue to innovate and, try to reach new users and keep us on our toes at the end of the day.
Yeah, I did like what Dan Harbison did, who used to be at the Trailblazers and now runs up the Jordan brand at Nike. Like if they were doing a big Jordan brand launch and Insta Stories effectively dropped the same day. So they just pushed all their content to Insta Stories. It's like, well, it's a new platform. You would just do it and don't overthink it. It's just like if you've got a massive platform already there, why wouldn't you trial it? But it's not as bad as having to go, here's another platform, new and fresh. At least you're doing it on an established network. It's not like when Meerkat and Periscope or Vine started and you had to go and tell everybody, hey, now we're over on this platform. But I also think that talking about that, the different types of millennials, I do think you can engage both, because I think the Snapchat loyalists, are younger, are more mobile, are angry about it. They're going to stay loyal to Snapchat, but Insta fans are probably going to be a little bit older and will start using it. So I think you could probably be serving it two markets as part of it. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
For maybe that older audience, it could potentially even be an entry point into Snapchat. As they get kind of familiar and comfortable with creating content for Instagram stories, it could entice them maybe to go over to Snapchat as well. So
it could,
I think there definitely will be some blend both ways.
It could backfire because people start understanding how to use it and then go, that's what Snapchat does, and it does stuff a little bit differently. Yeah. So where can people find you? Speaking of things like Twitter, you are Mize on Twitter.
That's
Is that
correct,
where people can find you? And on most platforms, you'll be that. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Atlanta is a town that I haven't been to, so there's a few ballparks and stadiums I haven't been to, and Atlanta is one city that I need to tick off the list, so I'm looking forward to making my way down there sometime soon. Yeah, well, and Seat is here next year, so there's your chance, and
hopefully the Braves are in town so you can catch a game, and if not, you'll have to book in your trip so you can check out SunTrust Park and the Battery.
Well, thank you very much, Greg. I'll look forward to doing that next year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean. I appreciate your time.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to Greg Mize, aka G Mize, M-I-Z or Z-E, on Twitter, or you can send him a message because his handle, G Mize, is the exact same one in the Sports Biz Slack community. I'm really, really thrilled to have both people from around the world that are working in digital in the Slack community, but also having many of the guests from the Sports Geek podcast are in there. So you can send Greg a message on the digital channel. We've got several different channels and just past 450 sports executives in the Sports Biz Slack. So if you haven't joined up, please do so. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/Slack. That's how easy it is to join up. Question of the podcast, and this is one I'll actually put into the digital channel of Slack, and we might get some conversation happening. How are you using Facebook Live? As I discussed with Greg, is it short form? Is it long form? Is it game day? Is it non-game day? Is it set pieces? Is it ad hoc pieces? What's the best format? And it really is a two-pronged question. What's the best format for your fans? What do they want? And then what's the best format for your digital KPIs? Getting views, getting reach, and potentially getting commercial outcomes from some of the things you're doing. So we're really interested to hear how teams are using Facebook Live, especially now that Facebook's in that mode of paying teams and giving some money to get that exclusive content. So if you're not getting those kind of deals that the MLB is getting and that some other teams are getting from Facebook, I would suggest start producing really high quality Facebook Live content, and then potentially you've got an asset there that Facebook might say, yes, we want that to continue. And you might get some money. Who knows? One thing I do want to ask, if you do one thing from this podcast, is please go and check out and vote if you can. If you deem it worthy. I don't want any fake votes. But if you like the content that I produce on the podcast, if you like the content that I produce at conferences like Seat and when I'm on stage, I would really love your vote for my South by Southwest panel. This panel was put together from discussions in Las Vegas with several different people, and I was lucky enough to put together a killer panel that I think will do a really great job at South by Southwest 2017. So you can go. So there's a quick link straight to the panel picker page. I know the panel picker can be a little bit of a pain. The logging in, the registering your details, and then the voting. But I would really appreciate that sacrifice. You can go to sportsgeekhq.com/South by Southwest or SXSW. That will get you to our panel picker. And now you're thinking, hang on, Sean, you're promoting it. What is it called? It is panel 62049. 62049. If you are looking for it, it's titled "Agencies Are Doomed as Sports Take the Lead." Really big. It's a really big theme. I've spoken about it before on the podcast. Sports teams began evolving into media organisations 20 years ago. Recent innovations in digital and social media have broadened the possibilities and accelerated the growth. Now even middle-ranking clubs can aspire to match ESPN and Fox Sports for quality and audience. Meanwhile, leading teams are capable of producing integrated campaigns with major partners which can efficiently deliver a variety of KPIs, especially revenue. The technology and skill sets are internal to teams. Agencies are more expensive and time-consuming alternative. Data, creativity, and content can be leveraged by sports teams to create fully functioning digital agencies that can deliver for partners both local and global. That's the pitch. How we can make sports teams start behaving and thinking like agencies and driving up revenue from digital activations. It's something I've been lucky enough to do with a few clients in spinning things around and effectively pitching against external agencies and winning that work. And the panel that I've got are absolutely spot on for this idea. First of all, we've got Peter Sorkoff from the Atlanta Hawks. He's doing this right now with the Atlanta Hawks, talking to businesses in Atlanta, trying to understand their brand and how the Hawks can best deliver it. I've also got Jane Busman-Wise with her experience across the whole New York City scene, now at New York FC, in helping making sure that digital activations for corporate partners can deliver more revenue for New York FC. And then lastly is my panelist from Tradable Bits, Lenny Go, who is working with multiple sports teams in helping them build out pitch deck after pitch deck with a whole bunch of campaigns that the sponsors are now clamouring for. And I was lucky enough to speak on a panel for Tradable Bits with Darshan, former Sports Geek podcast guest, talking with teams like the Redskins who are doing it, like the Trailblazers who are doing it, like the Dallas Mavericks who are doing it, and like the Vancouver Whitecaps if you've listened to previous episodes. So I really do believe in this topic. I do think it's a really big trend. I really do think it is a way for digital teams to become a revenue generator and not a cost center for sports. So please go to sportsgeekhq.com/SXSW, South by Southwest. I will actually put in a second one. So if you want to type out the whole thing, that link will go there as well. So please vote for the panel. Please leave a comment. There's also a discuss comment section there. Please leave a comment saying you're either looking forward to it or ask a question. And I'm going to be checking in every week, either sharing best case examples around this topic, but then also answering those questions. The other thing I want to do is I want to know if any of you, my listeners, have got your own South by Southwest panel up for a panel picker, because I want to promote you as well. I want the Sports Geek podcast and the Sports Business Slack community to rally behind each other in this cause. I'm going to start the ball rolling to promote someone else's South by Southwest. I was lucky enough to spend some time with him in Colorado in my recent Sports Geek trip. Mr. Richard Clark, who's formerly of Arsenal and has been on the podcast 2 times, and is now at the Colorado Rapids. I would really love for you to vote for Rich's panel as well. EPL versus MLS, Lessons in Soccer Storytelling. Now, Rich is the only guy that has worked on both sides. Worked at an EPL team at Arsenal and worked at the Rapids. So no one knows the differences in storytelling and the differences in digital from the two markets. So please go to Rich's panel. It's panel 65907. These will be in the show notes. But if you can't remember it, you can go to sportsgeekhq.com/vote Mr. Richard Clark. And that will take you straight to Rich's South by Southwest panel. Oh, sorry, it's not a panel, it's a solo. Because Richard doesn't need anybody to help him tell this story. So please, if you could, go to sportsgeekhq.com/South by Southwest SXSW. I would really appreciate it. I'm going to set up a little bit of a page and a mini site to also recommend other ones. But they'll be in the show notes for this episode. If you go to sportsgeekhq.com/124, you will find it. And I would really appreciate your support. I will be putting the rallying cause to everyone in the sports business Slack community. Again, if you join that'll be absolutely terrific. That's going to leave it for me. The sounds of the game that you'll hear at the end comes from Brazil, from Rio, with Brazil winning the gold medal game with Neymar hitting the 5th penalty kick. And you can only imagine what the reaction would have been like with the Brazilian fans finally winning that Olympic gold medal. Until then, my name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek, and you've been listening to the Sports Geek podcast.
Like the Sports Geek podcast? Find us on facebook.com/sportsgeek. Check out which teams work with Sports Geek at sportsgeekhq.com/clients. Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes.